Hey guys, Attorney Walter Hnot. It is now 1:50 a.m. on, I guess, the 15th. Yeah, it's the 15th. Here's the bottom line. We're going to be going into essentially who benefit from a class action lawsuit against the federal government to reassess the averaging algorithms that are used for the cost of living adjustment. And it's a two-pronged thing. It's raising, number one, basically how much you receive each year thereafter to keep up with inflation. The studies are coming out and showing that you are consistently having less and less each year that you need to be able to live with to be able to survive, because the cost of living adjustment, that percentage that you get, is always too low. That's prong number one, getting the averaging algorithm to be fixed. And then as part of that, getting a bump, having a major benefit boost to go ahead and get you to where you're supposed to be, which is the historical study. You go all the way back to the 1930s, 1950s, 70s, 2000s, etc. 80s were a big year. That's where they did a lot of the math changes for the cost of living adjustment. Now, with that said, and this is important, there's a second prong. The second prong of this lawsuit is to show the potential for government negligence or fraudulent handling of benefits. So, for example, have you ever noticed that when they increase your benefits, even though it's not enough to keep up with inflation, they very quickly turn around and take a larger portion of your benefits away, whether it be for the use of food stamps, having less food stamps, whether it be for the use of Medicare, having to pay more each month for Medicare? There has to be a study into the significance of the balancing act and how they're always taking more from you to keep this number low. And it's a double thing. It's the inflation problem of the cost of living adjustment and the resulting additional programs that are used to assist your disability benefits, your retirement benefits, etc. So two prongs to this problem. And here are the people who would actually benefit from essentially a cost of living adjustment lawsuit that would ultimately, hopefully, increase the amount per year that you get. Those people are mostly Social Security benefit recipients. They fall into, for example, supplemental security income, which with the current president, President Biden, is going to have a particularly high value effect to. President Biden is a really big fan of mass immigration. And you've seen through the steps of it that he's allowing, essentially, in the statistics show, hundreds of thousands to even millions of individuals to come into this country as illegal immigrants. And the immigration process is likely to have, to some degree, at some point, a mass naturalization. That is unlike the traditional step one, step two that they have to go through to become truly legal immigrants that are naturalized. With that said, SSI has this 7-year program allowance for certain types of immigrants who fit into the elemental requirements. And if those immigrants, essentially, who are naturalized, are to receive a higher cost of living adjustment, that would look better for the Democrats, because at the end of the day, they let them in, they got them naturalized, they got them a higher check. Okay, so I think that's got a good angle with President Biden. The next thing is obviously regular disabled SSI or elderly SSI people. I don't know how they survive. My student loans are double what they receive per month. If you look at the maximum of what they receive per month, my student loans are literally double that. I don't know how they survive. I don't know. I work with them all the time. They explain to me what they do with their daily lives, which is basically just existing, waiting to die. That's basically what it comes down to. They can't afford hobbies unless the hobbies are free, in which case they can't really advance in doing a lot of the stuff with the hobby, because the bottom line is there's just not things that they can do when it comes to traveling, or basically integrating with a larger audience, unless it's something very small and simple. The other group that would benefit would be the SSDI people, the Social Security Disability Insurance, falling under the Title II. SSI is Title 16. SSDI is Title II under the Federal Code. The SSDI individuals, very simply put, would go ahead and be able to have a larger check. Now, these SSDI people, a lot of their checks are more similar to what you would get if you were retired, but they're also usually lower because you haven't worked and paid in as much as somebody who had to wait for their retirement. And that's because they look at a 35-year averaging algorithm and basically give you, a number based upon that as to what your benefits should be. The next group that would likely do very well with this COLA increase are all of the retired people. All of the retired people, whether it's at 62, the 66, 67 full retirement age, or the max retirement, which is 70, all of the retired people basically are facing this downside scenario. The world where we used to see in the news the selling, right? That it was amazing. There's this big number. It's incredible. I mean, sure, you're still going to see like Blind to Billionaire doing that stuff and yada, yada. But I think a lot of people have caught on to that. Although his channel is wildly more famous and more viewed than mine. And my only response to that is that when you sell hope, right, and it's just kind of unfounded and doesn't really have a reality. Like if you look at the bills for these fourth, stimulus payments and stuff like that, they're just not going to pass. They're not there. That's why I'm proposing a lawsuit. We have to sue them. We'll have to let the courts decide what would be a proper averaging algorithm based upon experts brought into the trial, mathematicians, economists, or economic related mathematicians, statisticians, things like that, to go ahead and figure out essentially what this average should be, what this number should be going forward. Because I don't think there's a single person on earth who thinks that 8.7% is a valid number for how much the economy rose. It's just not correct. It's not. So another group that would do really well would be those receiving widow's benefits. So they have a spouse that dies, and you're looking at disabled and receiving at 50, or they're receiving at 60 because they're lost the potential of their spouse. These widows would do very well with that. Another would be divorced widows benefits. In this case, there's a special caveat rule where basically a divorced widow can still obtain benefits. Auxiliary benefits, usually for children that are very young, under 18, usually 16 below in some instances, and disabled adult child benefits, another good one, between 18 and 22, where basically a child is able to prove that they're disabled during that time and then tap into their parents' benefits. So, like traditional parents' retirement benefits. There's even more individuals beyond this, but this is a general overview as to who would truly benefit from a cost of living adjustment, Social Security / other federal agency lawsuit. It would have to be a massive class action, 70 plus million people, including all these different categories. So I want to go through a couple of things, real quick summary that we talked about in the prior video that I just did. We need experts. If you have mathematicians, if you have historians, if you have lawyers in your family that specialize in class action, specialize in historians who can write papers about the history, the intent, the purpose of the Social Security program. If you know any mathematicians who study macro and minor economics and the field of essentially relativity when it comes to algorithms for assessment of data that is real time versus historical versus fuzz data is basically what we call, we're not sure of some of the figures, so we try to kind of so the bottom line is we need mathematicians as well. Also, I need you guys to think up basically limitations as to how the trust fund money that we're setting aside and setting up will basically be released and then used for this lawsuit, because I think we need more than one type of lawyer, maybe even more than one law firm to go ahead and push forward with this situation. So I want you to think of when the money is put into this trust fund, and this trust fund is then to be opened and used for a law firm to go forward with it. I want you to think of limiting factors so that we know we've got the right law firm and we're releasing the funds and we're happy with who we're releasing the funds to. All right, guys. So an example of that would be that the lawsuit must be filed by a law firm with the means to hire adequate experts or continue the litigation for over 10 years. for the funds of the trust fund to be released. Guys, I'll catch you a little bit later. I'm going to be doing one more video after this. It is 2 a.m. now. You have a wonderful night, and we will go from there. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.